जय जय चिन्मुद्रकरे जय जय शृंगाद्रि विहरणव्यग्रे जय जय पद्मजाये जय जय जगदम्ब शारदे सदये. Namaskaram everyone. Thank you for that. So the topic on hand is simple, and I know I am the last obstacle between you and a good lunch, so I'll keep that in mind as well. So based on what Shri Gauri Shankar ji has spoken so far and what this presentation has contained so far, it is quite obvious that there is really only one problem we have in life. Right? In Western philosophy calls this the human condition. Western philosophy calls this the human condition. So there is a set of rules and regulations, a condition that we are thrust into once we are born. Right? We have no control over the manner of our birth. We have no control over where we are born, to whom we are born, how we are born. That is clearly not up to us. But once we are born, we are all faced with the same problem. The problem can manifest in various ways, the problem can be felt in various ways, the problem might have different solutions based on the individual. But the fact of the matter is that the human condition as it is the same. And as the speakers before me have said, what we want is only one thing. This is what the Shastras say. Atyantika sukha prapti, atyantika dukkha nivritti. So these are the Sanskrita words. People that know me know that I prefer the Sanskrita terms, because English is a very clumsy language for philosophy, in my opinion, since I have seen both. So what do these words mean? Sukha prapti, straightforward, right? Sukha is happiness, pleasure, prapti, the attainment of. But we have put one word in front of that, atyantika. Anyone knows what atyantika means? Permanent. So you want happiness that is permanent, and in the same way, the flip side, atyantika dukkha nivritti. You want to get rid of dukkha permanently, in such a way that it will not come back. So, in any given society that follows a particular religion, you will always have two ways of going about this goal of getting sukha and getting rid of dukkha. So one will be by what we call drishta upaya, which means that things that you see in this world, right? You're hungry, you eat. That is, you don't need, some divine being to descend from heaven to tell you this. So this is a drishta upaya. It is something that is available with the information that your senses can provide. And then in a society that follows some sort of a religion or some spiritual path, you will also have what you call a shrutopaya. Shruta for us means, Shruti is, what is Shruti? Veda. Right? So Shruta Upaya. So for us as Sanatana Dharmis, it will be from Veda. For people of other faiths, it will be whatever religious books that they have. Right? So you will look for a solution to the suffering that this human life has, either based on whatever Laukika Upayas, based on whatever we have that the world offers us, or based on something that our religion teaches us. Right? So Disra will tell you that. So therefore, you either need to rely on Veda or on whatever you have learned from this world. So Shastra has found problems with both of these. Right? So Tapatrayabhighatat. This is a text called the Sankhya Karikas. Tapatrayabhighatat. Because we are faced with the Tapatrayas. This word we hear a lot, right? Tapatraya nivaraya, tapatrayopashamana. It is a common word that you hear in stotras. What are these three tapas? Tapa is suffering, heat, literally. So tapatrayas are adhi daivika, adhi bhautika, and adhyatmika. Right? So basically we have categorized the kinds of dukkha that we experience in life. Some of these are adhyatmika, personal. Right? You get a fever. Your body is weak, or otherwise So there are some that are not based on ourselves, but other beings cause them. A mosquito bites you, a snake bites you, scorpion stings you, tiger eats you, something like this. This is Adi Bhautika. The third is Adi Daivika. So this Daiva is not exactly God. Here, Daiva is more so fate or nature. In Sanatana Dharma, those two are quite synonymous in many places. Fate and nature are not two different concepts. So nature unfolds based on fate, and fate is what is natural. So nature and fate are not separate. So things like hurricanes, storms, earthquakes, plagues, these kinds of things that are not perhaps based on yourself, they do not come from other living beings, but they happen nonetheless. So things that happen, natural calamities. So these are what we have to face. So now when you want to get rid of these through what we call drishta upayas, right? So based on whatever worldly means that you find, there is a problem here. They say atyanta atyanta abhavat. So these are not atyanta. What does that mean? So whatever solution that you can concoct for these in the world will not be permanent. Right? There is an earthquake, let us say, you move your house, you move somewhere else where you are guaranteed not to have an earthquake. Can you guarantee that there won't be a thunderstorm there? Or that there won't be something? There will be something or the other. Let us say that you live in a part of the world that, I don't know, there are too many mosquitoes are there, so malaria, dengue fever, all of these are prevalent. You go somewhere else. Can you guarantee that there won't be sickness there? There is nowhere in this earth that you can go that will not have some form of sickness or the other, where you will not have some problem caused by the environment. Right? Here it is too hot, there it is too cold, there it rains too much. It will be something or the other. So these are not things that you can seek to remedy through worldly means, number one, because they're not permanent. So then we say, okay, we will turn to Veda. Let us see what Veda tells us to do. So it does not rain. Veda says you do this ishti. It is a type of yajna called the Kariri ishti. If you do that, it will rain. If you do it in Sharat Kala, so you cannot just do it whenever you want it to rain. There are certain conditions that Veda puts. So in Sharat Kala, if the crops are dried up, in Sharat Kala, if the crops are dried up, then if you do this Kariri Yaga or this Kariri Ishti, then Vasante Jayate Vrishtihi. Then it is supposed to rain in the spring, if this Yaga is performed properly. But we get the same problem here also, in that it will rain that one time. What about the next time? So the problem remains that whatever solutions that you can think of based on worldly means or spiritual means, these do not fix the problem permanently. These are treating the symptoms. They are not curing the disease. So that is where, as we said earlier, the second part of the Vedas come into play. So the Karma Kanda, right, the part that tells you to do karma, you do this, you'll get this, you do this, you'll get this, you do this, you'll get this. So that these only give us the temporary solutions. So knowing that this cannot be the case, then the Rishis have progressed into the Upanishads, which deal with the root cause of the problem. So there in the Upanishads and in other parts of philosophy. So now it is noteworthy here that we are now moving from the realms of religion into philosophy. There is a marked difference between the two. Right? So what is religion? How would you define a religion? Faith. Predefined way of living life. What else? One more comment on religion. Rules to follow. Right. So religion does it does two things. It will tell you how to live your life, number one. And three, it will request that you just follow some certain things. It will tell you how to live your life and expect you to follow. It is not overly concerned with telling you how or why. Which is why when Veda says you do this yaga, for example this Kariri yaga, you do this, rain will fall. If you ask why, Veda does not really bother giving you an answer. If you believe it, do it. If you don't believe it, leave it. Whereas the Upanishads are not so. This is philosophy. wherein you are now debating something that is universal. You are debating something that is common. You are debating something that is analogous not just to humans but to pretty much every life form that exists. So you are moving from the realm of, as you all said, predefined rules and regulations into something more of a path of inquiry. But this path will also give you something concrete. It is not, the Indian philosophy is not like Western philosophy where things are left open-ended. See, Western philosophy has progressed to a certain point where they allow for multitude in holdings. As in, they can say, because philosophy cannot be proven, you can follow whatever line of reasoning you see fit, which is quite good in some ways. But the fact remains that in India and in most other Eastern philosophies as well, we have not left philosophy that freely. In that, while we do accept multitudes of faiths, you can be Advaiti, Vishishtadvaiti, Advaiti, whatever, Bheda, Bhedi, Shuddhadvaiti. There are umpteen numbers of philosophies within Sanatana Dharma itself. But that being said, we have not left it to say they must all be right. We do believe that philosophy can lead you to a proper conclusion. We give you freedom in how you reach that conclusion. But the fact of the matter is that because we intend this philosophy to present real goals, you must have one conclusion. You cannot have 10 different conclusions and expect all of them to produce a proper result. So, that being the case, it has led this society, or at least the civilization in the past, to conduct philosophical inquiry further than most civilizations have conceived of. So, we have spoken about the Brahma Sutras, right? So, these are 555 aphorisms, starting from Athato Brahma Jignasa, ending with Anavritti Shabdat, that is the last Brahma Sutra in the middle. So these are aphorisms that even the greatest of scholars still debate about. So until yesterday, in the Matha we had the Vakyartha Sadas, the Mahaganapati Vakyartha Sadas, where scholars from across the land, they come together in one place and discuss the nuances of what this philosophy is teaching. So it is because we have had this kind of a view with regards to philosophy that we did not leave the Brahma Sutras as they are. We then requested, or we required, a proper bhashya to be written to prove that whatever conclusion you are drawing from it is logical and sound. So for that, of course, as we saw in the presentation, Bhagavatpada wrote the bhashya. Then we decided that this is not enough, because obviously once Bhagavatpada writes the bhashya, there are several other bhashyas that popped up questioning. You have presented this line of reasoning, but we see these problems that also lie within this line of reasoning. So how do you answer those? So to answer that in even more detail, on Bhagavatpada's bhashya, there was one more text that was written called Bhamati, by a great Pandita called Vachaspati Mishra. On the other hand, you have Panchapadika Vivarana by the Vivaranacharya. But and then we decided that Bhamati also is not enough. The explanation of Bhagavatpada Sutra Bhashya was also, we wanted more. We wanted more discussion to happen. And then we wrote Parimala. There is one more Vyakhya on that called Parimala. And then we decided that it also had some answers, had some questions that needed answering. So then on top of that we wrote Kalpataru and then Parimala. So Bhamati, Kalpataru, Parimala. So for one text, right, for 555 lines, and each line is Athato Brahma Jignasa. So how short is this? Is Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jignasa, 3 words. So most sutras are actually this short out of those 555. There are a few that are slightly longer, but they are mostly this short. So you have taken 555 sentence fragments. On that you have written one book. On that book you have written one more book. On that book you have written one more book. And on that book you have written one more book. And this is one branch of philosophy. Now consider the volume that we must have in total. This I am just saying to let you know that the philosophy that has popped up in this civilization is not, the word in Shastra is Svakapola Kalpita. Kapola are cheeks. So Svakapola Kalpita means this thing has popped out from between your cheeks, which means that we are not even giving it the credence of a proper logical statement. We are saying there is something that has popped out from between your cheeks. So that is not how this line of philosophy runs. So to come back to the topic, what do they then say about the human condition? What is the path that they have given is, you have heard the statement, Jnana Devata Kaivalyam, only through knowledge you will get moksha. So you have this and then you have the human condition. So how do these two reconcile? So Bhagavatpada quotes a Nyaya Sutra in the beginning of the Sutra Bhashya. I will just explain that and then take my leave. So this is a Nyaya Sutra of Gautama. So Nyaya Shastra is also there, right? It is a Darshana. It is another branch of philosophy in its own right. Dukkha Janma Pravritti Dosha Mithyajnananam Uttarottarapaye Tadanantarapayad Apavargaha. This is the Sutra, the Nyaya Sutra. So they have presented a sequence. So we have dukkha, that is what we want to cure. So what is this caused by? The Acharya thought. And then dukkha janma. So any suffering that you have occurs because you have taken upon a body. There is no one that has taken upon a body that will not experience dukkha in some way or the other. You can be born as a king, you can be born as healthy as you want, you can be born into as safe a place as you want, but at the end of the day, the very fact is this body is born of punya and papa. Right? You take upon a body to experience karma. So there is no way in hell that you will be let out of this body without experiencing sukha and dukkha. See, we talk about dukkha because that is what we want to avoid. We have, if someone says you will have 10 more lives, 10 more births and you will experience sukha in all of them, we will have no argument there. But the second someone says that you will have dukkha in all of them as well, then we start to think. So we are talking about dukkha because that is what we want to avoid. But the same goes for sukha as well. Okay? So dukkha comes because you have janma. So why did the janma come? So then it follows that if you get rid of the janma, you will get rid of its product, which is dukkha. So why did this janma come? As I just said, it occurs because you have some balance of karma left over. Right? In the law of this universe, in this cosmic law, the fact is, the law is that whatever you do, you must experience, which I think is a pretty fair law. So the fact remains that everything you do, you must experience. There are things that have been left over that you have not experienced yet. To right that balance, you must then take upon another birth. The problem is, as we try to get rid of the balance in this birth, we create a new account for the next one. Based on whatever we do now, we accumulate new karmas to be then experienced in the next birth, which leads to a cycle. Right? That is why samsara is a cycle. It is not just a stop and go process. So dukkha janma, this janma is caused by karma, action, which is what the Acharya has called pravritti in the sutra. So dukkha janma pravritti. Why do we act? Why do we do anything? Why do we do anything? Why do we act at all? Why do we just not sit in one place happily and just think of Brahman all day? The Acharya has answered saying dosha. Doshas mean problems within the mind, which they take many forms. In Yoga Sutras you have 5, asmita, all of that. But we can generally narrow it down to raga and dvesha. You have heard these terms, right? What is raga? Raga is need, greediness. What else? Likes. So raga basically means feeling favorable towards something. It manifests in all the way that you said, likes, being greedy, wanting something. But at the crux of the matter, raga means finding something desirable. Right? That is why you want something. That is why you are greedy for something. It is finding something desirable. On the flip side, dvesha is finding something undesirable. It is because we find certain things undesirable and certain things desirable that we act at all. We act to accumulate those things that we feel are desirable, and we act to get rid of things that we feel are undesirable. Which is why sometimes the same object may be, the same item may become the object of both feelings. So in the winter, coldness is viewed as undesirable, whereas in the summer, that same cool breeze is viewed as desirable. So in both cases, that is causing you to act. In the winter, it is causing you to turn on the heater. In the act, we have taken upon a birth, and because you have taken upon a birth, you suffer. That is where the progress has gone so far. So now how do you get rid of these feeling favorable and not feeling favorable to things? Because this is what we are literally born to do. We are conditioned to like things and not like things since we are born. Right? Operant conditioning. That we are forced to either want things or not want things based on how we are raised, based on the environmental factors that you are in, based on your friends, based on what you are taught. These things all factor into only one thing. What you like and what you don't like. So why is it that we feel this way? Why is it that this is the mental state of every person? The Acharya has answered it as mithya jnana, improper understanding. So we are looking now at the cause of this. So what is the reason? See, there are things that you view as desirable or favorable and things that you view as unfavorable. That is fine, but why is happiness considered positive? You gravitate towards your nature. Because the nature of your Atma is Ananda, you gravitate towards anything that provides you a glimpse of that, and your nature is to shun anything that does not give you that. So because your nature is Sukha, you want Sukha. Because your nature is the opposite of Dukkha, you want to get as far away from it as possible. Which is why in this line of questioning, the question ends with, I want Sukha. There is no, why do you want Sukha and not Dukkha? Because the answer is obvious. It is who you are. That is what we said, Swabhavastu pravartate. Your Swabhava, in Gita, this comes in Gita, Swabhava, your nature, it will run its course regardless of whatever you do. So because this is your nature, Upanishad calls us Amritasya Putraha. Upanishad calls out to us, Shrunvanto, listen, Amritasya Putraha. Children of immortality. That is how Upanishad has spoken to all of us. So that is our nature. That is where we come from. And every piece of sukha that we experience in this world is actually an experience of ourselves, is what Vedanta tells us. So Atman or Brahman has three aspects. What are they? Satchidananda. You would have heard this, right? Sat, Chit and Ananda. So these first two parts we understand. Sat means? Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is happiness, bliss. So existence we all are aware of, right? We say I am. There is no one that says I am not. Bhagavad Pada leads with this. Nakaschit nahamasmi iti braviti. No one says I do not exist. Right? So the Sat aspect of Brahman is experienced by us directly. And so too is the Chit. Right? Chit means to bhati. It exists. It is available. So there is no point in time where we are not aware of ourselves. Right? If I am looking at a book, there is a point in time where if I close my eyes, if I turn away, if the book is elsewhere, that I am not aware of the book. There is no point in time where Atman is not aware. And we are not aware of the Atman, of the self. Right? The aspect of I exists in every single cognition that takes place in our mind. So the Chit aspect of our true nature also is quite readily available in our experiences. The only part that remains hidden from us is the Ananda. So we cannot say that at every point in our existence we experience Ananda. Right? Just as we say, I always am. There is no point that I am not. Just as we cannot say that. Just as we say, I always am aware of myself. Just as that is said, there is no one that says, I am always happy because that is who I am. The Anandamsha is what we call Tirohita. It is covered up. It is layered. It is veiled by avidya. So avidya, right? Ignorance is exactly what mithya jnana in the sutra is, improper knowledge. So what is the form of this improper knowledge? So proper knowledge is knowing that I am the nature of Ananda. So as I said, whatever you experience, so when you find an object that causes you sukha, as per Shastra what happens is, in that period of time, based on the mental vritti it is called, based on the mental state that arises based on the object you have seen, for that brief amount of time, the veil that covers your Ananda nature is cast aside and you experience your own Ananda. And then once that object passes, the veil is once again cast. I am saying a veil, but this is still a philosophical concept. It is not like there is a lid put on the cooker and then it is taken off again. Right? What we mean by a veil is that the experience of that object that you are conditioned to find favorable causes that ananda to be felt for that second. The second that object is removed, the ananda is once again back to its unrealized state. We do not say that ananda does not exist, right? Because you cannot get rid of nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate satah. Famous saying from Gita, right? That which exists will exist whether you want it to or not. That which does not will not exist. So when your nature is ananda, ananda will be there. The question is whether it is felt or not. So when we see an object that we find favorable, that ananda is revealed for ever so slight a span of time. And once that object passes, we go back to that unrecognizing state of that ananda. So what does this mean? What is the implication of this statement? It means that any happiness you feel comes from you and not from an object. And this is also how, in our system of philosophy, we posit that the same object can cause different people happiness and different people dukkha. Because happiness and sorrow lies in the individual and not in the object. This is exactly. So the same, some people don't like bitter gourd, karela, kakarkai. I don't know what it's called in Tamil. Same word. Yeah, so some people like it, some people don't. Right? So why? It is because the sukha is not found in the bitter gourd. The sukha is found in you. So for that person, his mother probably would have made that sabzi with jaggery or something since he was a child. He will like that. He has been conditioned to find it favorable. So when he sees that, he experiences that Atmananda. Someone that has been fed bitter gourd as a punishment since he was a child, someone that was taught that, bitter gourd is something that you should not really like to eat, he will never find sukha in that because he has not been conditioned that way. So the same object will cause one person pleasure and the other person sorrow, because the conditioning is different and because the sukha actually lies in the individual. So this being the case, the proper understanding that will cause us to gravitate away from raga dvesha is that I am of the nature of that ananda and I don't need to find it in outside objects. So when we say that this raga and dvesha are caused by mithya jnana, this is the jnana that we need to get. So right now the mithya jnana is that I am this body-mind complex. Shastra is called the Karya Karana Sanghata. That is the Shastric term for it. So we say that, I am short, I am tall, I am thin, I am fat, I am fair, I am dark. What are we referring to? We are referring to the body, right? The physical body that grows and decays. Or otherwise we say, I am hungry, I am thirsty. These are all what we call prana dharmas. These are all the dharmas of prana. Hunger and thirst belong to the prana, not to the atma. Or otherwise we say, I am hopeful, I am sad, I am fearful, I am shameful. So fear, shame, all of these are things that belong to the mind, still not things that belong to Atma. So it is when we identify ourselves with these that we get raga dvesha. Anything that causes the body and mind pleasure is construed as pleasurable to me. Anything that causes the body and mind pain is construed as painful to me. Right? So for example, simple example is perfumes, let us say. Someone likes perfume because he says it makes me feel good. Who is the perfume actually helping? It is helping the body. But because he feels abhimana is I-ness. There is a sense of I-ness and mine-ness, ahankara and mamakara towards the body. Which is why the perfume that makes the body feel good is considered as being pleasurable to me. Right? Or in the same way, we don't even want to look at things that are grotesque, right? So there is sometimes if you look in the matha, on the road, sometimes, especially in this rainy season, these frogs come out onto the road. And in the night, if the driver is not careful, the car will run over the frog. And until the morning, no one is there to clean that. So you have a frog that has been smashed into the ground by a car. So no one wants to look at that. That is where I'm coming to with this. So no one wants to look at that. Right? No one wants to look at that frog that is broken into two on the ground and stare at it because it causes displeasure. It is not something that is particularly favorable. You don't want to see things like that. Right? And it is why even Veda says, Bhadram Pashyema. Akshabhihi. Let us only see good things, Veda asks. So there is a reason why you don't want to see that. But what is seeing that? Your eye is seeing it and your mind is feeling the displeasure. Right? So when we say, seeing that makes me feel agitated. The agitation lies in the mind. So even if you find something favorable, it is either towards the body or the mind. When you're finding something unfavorable, that is also towards the body and the mind. But the problem, this raga dvesha, lies in when you attribute that to yourself. Right? So this is a problem. And as I said, the solution lies when you realize that whatever it is that I'm trying to, make feel good, whatever it is that I'm trying to please, is not actually who I am, number one. Number two, I don't need to please myself because I am of the nature of sukha. When you think that you are the body and the mind needs sukha from somewhere else. But when you realize that you are sukha, your nature is sukha, why would you need to act to either get sukha or get rid of dukkha? So if you realize your true nature as that of being Satchidananda, there is no more need for raga dvesha. There is nothing more. Naivatasya kritena artha na kriteneha kaschana, Gita says. There is nothing that he has to do. There is nothing that he needs to desist from. Nachasya sarvabhuteshu kaschid arthavyapashrayaha. There is nothing that he has to do in transactions with any other being in this world that will cause him pain or pleasure or that he feels needs to be done or does not need to be done. This comes from such a knowledge. So this knowledge of who you really are is what gets rid of raga and dvesha. Now that you don't have raga and dvesha, there is no more need for action. There is no more need to perform karma. There is no more need to accumulate karma. Now that you do not accumulate karma, and now that you have also actually renounced the sense of identity with that which experiences the karma. Because if you think about it in as per Vedanta also, our sense of identity, where does it lie? What is experiencing the karma? Right? So we said that raga dvesha leads us to accumulate karma. So who is actually experiencing the karma? So Vedanta actually says that Atma, we say that the Jiva experiences karma, but the Atma itself actually has nothing to do with karma. Because the results of karma are felt by the body and the mind. Right? Punya is rewarded by pleasure accorded to the body and the mind. Papa is also rewarded by displeasure accorded to the body and the mind. Right? So by some papa, I don't know, you will get wounded. The wound is to the body. By some papa, you will feel tension or fear. That is to the mind. At no point in time is there a situation wherein the Atma is really affected by karma. So now that because of a lack of raga dvesha, now that you have a lack of raga and dvesha, you will not accumulate new karma, number one. And two, you have actually lost all sense of identity with whatever it is that is experiencing karma, your past karma. So now there is no more attachment to karma. Now that there is no karma, you are guaranteed that you will not be born again. Since you will not be born again, you will not experience the dukkha of samsara. And it is not just getting rid of the dukkha, but you will be abiding in your nature, which is ananda. As we just said, right? The nature is ananda, and that is what you have. No one can take that away from you. So this is the path that Shastras have put. They have analyzed the way of the world. They have analyzed the human condition, right? Whatever situations we are thrust into when we are born. They have analyzed that. They have thought about why it is that we end up the way that we are. Because there is no one that does not try to get happiness. Our lack of happiness is not for a lack of trying. It is only that our efforts we are barking up the wrong tree. That is what it is. Our efforts are put in the wrong places. We try to get things that will make the body and the mind happy rather than understanding that you already have what you need to be happy, and that is yourself. So in this manner of reasoning, our Shastras have led us that your nature is happiness, and that is the greatest thing that you can achieve in this life. So whatever it is that you feel that you need to achieve, it is only relative. That is what we call Laukika. And Shastra does not deny that. I will just say these two sentences and then take leave. Because Shastra understands that this philosophy is quite frankly fantastic. It is great on books. But who has the time to sit down and think of all of this if you are looking for your next meal? Who will have the time to sit down and think of all of this calmly if there is no roof over your head? Who has the time to sit down and calmly rationalize all of this out if there are no clothes on your back? So Shastra at no point says that this quest or this path has to come at the expense of pleasure in this life. Which is why dharma, artha, kama are sandwiched in the middle and then moksha. So do what you have to do, that is dharma. With that, get the means that you need to experience happiness, that is artha. Fulfill whatever desires you have, that is kama. And then realize that permanently, if you really wish to be like this all the time, you need to transcend all of this. Which is why, to put it in layman's terms, there is a very simple equation that Sanatana Dharma has put. Humans have likes and duties. So the Western society, in their Western philosophy, has put individual freedoms ahead of duties. That is one way of running the society. We do not have to criticize that. But Eastern society, India, China, Southeast Asia, we have always put duties ahead of freedoms. The individual is bound to society before he is required to serve himself. So what does this mean? It means that when there is an instance where duty and freedom conflict, precedence is given to duty. That is what we call dharma charana. And this dharma does not mean you immediately grab your nose and put on a veshti and go sit in a corner. It is doing what you have to do. As Gauri Shankarji said, doing your job as a part of society, doing your job as a child, doing your job as a parent, doing your job as a spouse. So when this duty conflicts with your own raga dveshas, we are instructed to put your own likes and dislikes aside for the sake of duty. So even in the way that we are told to run our life, our way of life is ensuring that you are already distancing yourself from raga and dvesha. Which is why we say karma is needed for jnana. Because as you practice not paying attention to raga and dvesha in the way that you lead your life, your mind is distanced from that automatically. You are given freedom so long as it does not conflict with your dharma. So as a mother, your job is to feed, let us say you need to cook. Your job is to feed your family. You can cook whatever you want. You can cook however it pleases you. You can cook however it is convenient to you. But cook you must. Right? So when freedom and duty conflict, duty has the upper hand. When you have a chance to pursue different paths in your duty, there you have freedom. So this is a normal dharmic life. Shastra does not stop you from doing this. This is why you are allowed to be materially prosperous. But Shastra takes, if you wish to lead a spiritually happy life, Shastra gives you one more step to take, and it says, your freedom does not matter in the higher sense. Because as we said, raga and dvesha are ephemeral. So when you act only out of duty, that is an even more elevated state. So whatever I like, does it matter? Does what I like or dislike really matter in the long run? No. Therefore, I will act only out of duty, not out of likes and dislikes. So there is even more distance put now between raga and dvesha. And in the end, we say that once you have only performed your duty with no thoughts as to likes and dislikes, you then do not even need to perform your duty because you have transcended the bounds of this physical body. At that point, you are a jnani. At that point, like Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswamiji, you are a Jivan Mukta. At that point, you are a Tattvavit. You are released from samsara and you are free in every sense of the word. That is the freedom that you are pursuing. You give up the freedom of the body for the freedom of existence. You give up the freedom of the body and mind for the freedom of the soul. And that, Shastra tells us, is where true happiness lies. So this is possible through philosophy. This is possible through the grace of the Guru. This is possible through the grace of Ishvara. Which is why, although this seminar will be personality development, although this course will discuss philosophy, we have chosen to have it in the vicinity of Sharadamba, Ishvara, God, whatever you want to, Ishvari, same thing, and in the presence of the Jagat Gurus, Guru. So regardless of however much personality development you wish to have, regardless of whichever spiritual path you want to follow, they can only take place by the grace of the Guru and Ishvara. The Guru to show you the path and Ishvara to ensure that the path is smooth. So we owe whatever progress that we can make in this life to them. And in the same way, we owe it to the Gurus and to our Purvacharyas and Rishis that have worked so hard to give us this knowledge. To start from scratch and to come to these conclusions is incredibly tough. But the fact that these Rishis have given us these conclusions, said, okay, now you think and come to them, makes our path all the easier. So we must be ever grateful to them, and offering my namaskaras to the Padapadmas of the Jagat Gurus and Sharadamba, and bidding all of you and letting you know that I'm very happy that we have been able to meet here and that we are taking 2 days to think of such matters together. I will take my leave.
धन्यवादः.